Hello, Outliers. We are back. Let's start with today's episode. So, today we have someone who has founded three companies, who has been awarded with top 5 under 25 entrepreneurs, who has been helping different businesses grow by joining their organizations in different significant roles. He has worked at Amazon as senior product manager and is a product manager now at Google. So, let's welcome Alexey. Hi, Alexi. How are you?
Very good, thank you. How are you, Lucky?
Doing good as well. So, I think I just covered the tip of the iceberg with your introduction. Why don't you tell us about your journey?
Sounds great. First of all, thank you so much for having me here today. A great pleasure to talk to you guys. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I actually started off as more of a self-taught coder back in high school. I built a few apps here and there just for fun, for no particular reason. Um, I guess it was just fun to learn how to code. And then a few of my friends asked if I could help them set up a website for sharing party photos. And this was way before Facebook or Instagram. So I put something together, and it really took off within the school. But towards the end of high school, I kind of realized I'm not so much into like the coding part as I am in trying to understand more of what product do we want to create in the first place, and what problems will it need to solve, and just being really able to understand people better, to understand their needs and pain points, and understand how to build a product that they really appreciate and want to use, rather than just coding a little gadget for fun. In fact, I got to the point where I didn't even want to code anymore. I just wanted to focus on building the product, but the coding, of course, came naturally. So I thought I'll get a business degree and eventually start my own business, or just find myself at an intersection between the business world and the tech space. And I never really heard about product management back then. I guess maybe it wasn't as big of a thing yet. And I never really even thought I'd start a business so soon. But then, first day at Babson College, at orientation, someone came up to me and asked, "What business are you running?" And I was like, "I'm 18 years old. What business am I supposed to be running? Like, is this a joke or what, right?" I mean, Babson is known to be number one in entrepreneurship, but I didn't really think that kids already come in running businesses. And so it was not a joke. There were, in fact, a lot of students coming in when they're 18 already with a successful business career, and I was truly astonished and inspired. And that's when I realized you really don't have to wait for having like 10 years of experience and an MBA or something like that. So like, why not start now? Very interestingly, yeah, so very interestingly, maybe like a year or so in, or maybe even less, people started coming to me knowing that I'm a computer guy. And they were like, "Can you build me a website or a web app for my idea?" Because a lot of people had business ideas. And some people had small budgets, or they had family and friends that they had as investors. And so they would come to me as the guy who knows how to build stuff, or at least thought he knows. And it just so turned out that I became the go-to guy for building software. And it's not like I particularly set out to do that intentionally. It's just it just came very naturally, came easily. And so I started my company Convesis, which is what ultimately ended up being featured in Business Week in the top 5 under 25, which was really amazing. A very successful company. I ended up building that to a team of around 12, 15 people, as both software developers and product managers. And that really started my whole career. Very interestingly, like sophomore year in college, even. Um, after that, After that, I did dabble with a couple of startups of my own. Some more successful than others. But ultimately, I did do this product management consulting for a few years. Um, did also join some companies in a bit of a more full fashion. Like there was a company that brought me on as more of an in-house product management leader. So they were basically building a very early stage of ChatGPT, but this was way back in 2012. I was really amazed at what they were able to accomplish back then. It wasn't quite AI, but it was really, really good at understanding human language and responding in various ways. So it was, in fact, an early chatbot of sorts. And this company brought me in to help them figure out what to actually do with their technology. So it was a bunch of PhDs, and they did a really amazing job at like creating this very sophisticated tech. But they weren't quite sure like what exactly to do with it. How do you build a product out of it? Is it a chatbot? Is it a search engine? Is it for enterprises or small businesses? Like, how do you really put it together and sell it? So while I did help them figure out that strategy, we actually went much faster than that, and we ended up being bought out in 6 months by Nuance Communications. It's the company that builds Siri, and so I don't know exactly whether they ended up putting it into Siri or not, but they basically acquired the company, and um, I was very happy. So I guess from that point on, I decided to switch gears for a little bit and work for somebody else. So I went into product management, worked for a big startup called DataStax, then Amazon, and now I'm at Google. So I've been kind of all over the place.
That's amazing. And you mentioned product management consulting. And that was one of the unusual things, and in a very good way, unusual things, because I hadn't heard about it before meeting you. So, can you please help us understand what product management consulting is about and what are some of the most common misconceptions related to the same?
Great question. I would say product management consulting isn't a very popular term because product managers are oftentimes full-time in-house within the company. It's not really outsourced so much. But I did find a very in-demand niche around that when I was starting out, because there are a lot of startups and even bigger companies that want to build products but don't really have that in-house product management structure in their organization. Maybe they have fantastic engineers and other business people, but not really that PM culture. I'm guessing it's changing now, but at the time, that was definitely a very big thing. I would say a lot of misconceptions might be that when you hear the word consultant, you're thinking somebody who delivers a lot of slide decks and does a lot of theoretical work. But since product management is about actually executing on a product vision, for us it was a lot more about not slide decks, but actually building the product, getting from point A to B, getting it out the door, making it make money. I don't recall ever actually making a slide deck, to be honest. I think we really just focused on getting it done. Uh, I I wrote a lot of documents, but not a whole lot of slide decks.
That's interesting. And as you said, these companies did not necessarily have an in-house product management practice or a product lead. So, did they have the vision defined, or did you help them define the vision?
You know, it really depends. So some customers might come to me with as little as a whiteboard sort of general vision for what they want to build, like a wireframe of their application, for example. Some customers came to me with something a lot more sophisticated, which they thought is what they wanted, but at the end of the day, they realized when I joined as sort of a PM consultant that they need to really slim it down and focus on something a lot more narrow for their MVP, for their proof of concept. So it was really all across the board.
That's interesting. And was it difficult to convince them?
Of what exactly?
Uh, let's say slicing down the scope, because usually customers are like, no, I want this much in this timeline, right? So, or I should say at times, not always, but was it difficult to negotiate with them on scoping it down or defining or refining the MVPs? What was that experience?
For the most part, it worked out pretty well, I think. When you explain to the client why it doesn't make sense to try to build a Swiss Army knife and rather build something very specific that solves a particular problem, I do think they get it. So it's a lot about educating the client, about being able to really share your understanding of product management with them in terms of why it would be a challenge, and why it would be challenging for the business to try to build too much at the same time.
Yes, this makes sense. That is especially a note that aspiring product managers should take. So, even I learned that when I was facing the customers for the first time. So, thanks for emphasizing on that. And you mentioned about the whiteboard. So, can you please help us understand how did you unravel the opportunities which would maximize their business while also managing the ROI for your business?
Yeah, so this was this was a very interesting client. The company was called Procterchem. It's one of the first companies in online test taking, allowing students, such as for professional certifications, take tests from home instead of going to a test taking center. So there were a lot of moving parts in this product with regards to the required functionality, like being able to lock down the person's computer so they can't cheat, setting up an efficient system for the company to remotely monitor and record the test takers, an interface for the customers to take the tests, manage test takers, and so on. And all of that had to be built from scratch. So it is pretty complicated, and all of this needed to work on Windows and Mac OS and so on and so forth. It could have taken forever to build all of that, make it scalable and reliable. And so we really needed to narrow down the MVP, like the real proof of concept. And since I was consulting on the product and doing the technical architecture, I always had a pretty good sense of what features offer the best bang for the buck in terms of what can be built in stages and what can be built down the road or improved. And I think it was very successful. I mean, at the end of the day, the business really took off and was later acquired by Pearson, a very big player in online testing.
That's amazing. So you have had your share of contribution in many success stories. That is amazing to know. And I understand that these acquisitions and all are one part on how you scale your own businesses, how you help other businesses grow, especially the clients. I know that you have also helped some of the companies with getting funds from the VCs. So can you please help our audience understand what does it really look like, and what are some things that you think they are, as in VCs, are looking for?
Great question. It's very true that I have helped a lot of companies with their fundraising processes. I mean, as a product manager, that is what I was brought on board to help them do and go from Series A to Series B and onwards. What VCs are looking for, I would say, they're betting on, number one, a huge market, a very clear business model, and a founder who can go that distance. And to elaborate on that, with regards to the market opportunity, ultimately, is this going to be big? Maybe not necessarily big today or tomorrow, but ultimately, like, is this a big enough market, and is it growing? On the second point, the business model needs to be very, very clear and concise. It has to be a simple problem statement and value proposition. Can you say it in a sentence instead of 10 bullet points or 10 slides? It has to be one sentence. And you have to show some traction, insight into your market and your product, obviously. And you have to show speed. You have to show that besides understanding the business model and the market, your team is able to execute on the vision. and it doesn't have to be something very sophisticated. It just needs to show that you're able to roll up your sleeves and build something fast, even if it's just like a duct tape box. Um, and the third point was about the founder, and I think it's a very, very important one. And when I say that VCs really care about the founder, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have built 10 companies already. I mean, obviously it helps, but they're really looking for someone who is passionate about the product they're building, passionate about the business and the customers. Are you willing to work 80 hours a week for several years? I mean, it's really important to be able to do a lot more than just a full-time job on this. And is the founder able to think in an unbiased fashion? Like, do you challenge your own assumptions? Are you data-driven and not charismatic in that way? And ultimately, how good of a leader are you? Like, can you attract and manage A-plus talent? Can you get people to follow you?
That's amazing. And on the strength side, so if I had to lay out some of the strengths, then how courageous you are because you are taking a lot of risk, and how persuasive you are because of the business plan, and then how influential you are. So just trying to pick some strengths out of that answer to help the audience. I know there are many more that you described, but these are some of those which I captured. And from that experience, that is a pretty rich experience, um, plus your own entrepreneurship experience, would you like to share something or at least one lesson that people almost always, or people often forget about? And as an entrepreneur, as a core team, it is very important to remember.
That's a very interesting question as well. If I had to think, I would say the most important thing as an entrepreneur is understanding your real target customer, like really understanding them, listening to them, getting them, and not being blinded by the early adopters. You might get a lot of positive feedback from your first 100 customers or crowdfunding supporters. They might love your product. But can you prove that the same enthusiasm scales to 1 million users or more?
And you keep on repeating the assess and learn part till you are sure that this will scale properly.
Exactly, absolutely. You really have to continuously and iteratively improve the concept, prove the product to your real customers, not just the early adopters, and you have to be able to segment them in that way when you do your research.
And by the way, for people who don't know, I actually certified as a product manager from product school, and Alexey was the faculty there. So I just brought up the concept to be like, hey, I remember this. So thanks for confirmation and validation on that one. And now let's talk about your business again. I know that social media was not at its peak. In fact, it was still in its infancy back then. So, how did you convince some of the skeptical businesses to take the leap of faith?
Yeah, so this was about my startup, which was called Viral School. I co-founded that with my friend, also named Alex. Um, Viral School was an online platform that allowed large brands to host contests where independent content creators would create promotional material for the brand, videos specifically, online videos, with the hope of some of them going viral. And we created a business model through which the customer would have nothing to lose. So if we compare that with TV advertising, where the customer invests large fixed amounts of capital, regardless of whether they're getting anything out of it, we were just simply charging customers per view or per click. So basically, a very standard online advertising model, but with real unique content. And so we really dove deep on the numbers, like the cost-benefit analysis of traditional advertising versus online video marketing, and I think it really made a lot of sense with our customers.
And I think religions was around the same, right? Because it was the media, and I
Yeah,
was the journey
Yeah, exactly. So our company was called Correlligence Media, and we had a lot of other ideas of what we might expand to in the future. Our initial product was called Viral School.
Ah, okay. Thanks for the correction there. Oh, by the way, you can understand now that this is not pre-reverse rehearsed. Sorry. And tell me more about what inspired you to go for that field, as in advertising in those days, as you had already said, and we already researched a bit around the timeline. So, given that the social market was not that big and people were still learning, social media market was not that big, and people were still learning how to navigate through some of the apps which had just launched. So, how did you think about the future already?
Yeah, the space was so nascent with so many ideas and opportunities that we just figured that there are some very major um, outdated business models, and at that time it was TV advertising. Um it was impossible to do proper analytics on that, see like how many people are watching your ad, who are they, and things like that. And we understood that with YouTube, it's a completely different world. And meanwhile, there are all these filmmakers creating viral videos on YouTube, generating millions and millions of views, but they're not actually advertising anything. It's like they're just creating funny videos. So why not do some product placement and not necessarily make it like an advertisement, but just make it a fun video, but make it on the topic of some product that a company has developed. Um, and so we just sort of saw it as a no-brainer to connect the two and build this product.
Latent needs, right? No brainer for you, but nobody came and told you that we need this.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it was kind of a no-brainer for us, but something that we needed to prove, obviously, as like, is there actual customer demand for this at the end of the day?
Yes, that is amazing. And now that brings me to this question because I can see some commonalities. But let me upfront ask you, what are the core values and processes that you have lived by?
I would say always staying conscious about the reasons for spending all the hours of my day. And it's not easy, and I'm not perfect at it, but you kind of have to continuously think about um, being being yourself an investor of your own time. It's the single most valuable thing we have. And how much of it do you spend pursuing your dream? Perhaps getting stuck on the wrong projects, getting stuck on the wrong people too, right? And making sure you devote enough time to taking really good care of yourself. So time management is really hard, but as an entrepreneur, you have to be really good at it. And more specifically on the entrepreneurship side itself, I would say I'm personally very strict about delivering on my promises and just making sure I give my customers and users not only what's required by contract, but also what is required, not required, but reasonably expected. And while doing so, sort of maintaining a set of ethics that does just that. And at times it does make it harder to build a company. It's harder to compete when there's a lot of folks cutting corners and doing things sort of in a more sloppy fashion. But in the end, these are the values that make customers trust in you and your business and allow you to succeed long term. So I think it's really important to not get distracted by what your competitors are doing and what others are doing in terms of, building sloppy products or building sloppy privacy policies or what have you, but really just staying true to those values.
It's amazing.